back. This is Creativity is the Cure. Today I'm here with my good friend, Robert Frazza. How you doing, Robert?
Very good, Malcolm. Been a while.
It's been
Good to
quite
see
a while. We were just trying to figure out, probably was Tony Levin gig somewhere, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Baked Potato in LA, probably 2024. I would say.
Sounds about right. For people that don't know, Robert is a tour manager and sound engineer. Does that sound about right? Because I know you doing all these amazing tours, but you're not only the tour manager. You're setting up the gear. You're advertising the gig. You were pretty much doing everything.
Depends on who the client is. What I call my boutique artists, which are Stickman, Tuner, David Sancious and Will Calhoun, Exposure, smaller units, but still there's a market for them. So it's literally everyone has to do everything kind of thing. Even the musicians have to jump on the marketing and, I rely on them to set up their own gear and break it down and,
And are you trading off with the band on who's driving if it's in a van?
Well, certainly anyone is allowed, but normally myself or Tony does the driving just because we enjoy it. Or Elvin McRae, who has been helping us out the past 3 years, will jump in.
We have a little bit of a background. I wrote down that you are a sound expert, audio engineer with 40 years of experience managing tours and supporting hundreds of national and international bands. Some of the people that you have worked with include Average White Band, Adrian Belew, Warren Zevon, Yosu Nador, Bill Bruford, Tony Levin, Jerry Marotta. It goes on. And you invited me to a show years ago, maybe 10 years ago. It was Todd Rundgren and
Joe Jackson.
Yeah, Todd Rundgren and Joe Jackson. That was a wild
That
show.
would have been 2007.
And did you tell me years ago you were doing sound for Peter Gabriel's show, the really weird one with Nusrat, Fateh Ali Khan, and Michael Stipe?
I started working with David Sancious in 1993, 94. And then 1996, VH1 had a show called Honors.
Right.
And that particular year, they were honoring Peter Gabriel's Witness program. This all came out of the human rights tours that were happening. And again, you'll have to double check me on this, but I think the Witness program was getting, at the time, VHS recorders and fax machines.
I'm laughing because I'm
well, the technology.
The younger kids I work with, they can't imagine people not having phones. But you're right. I think Peter was working with Amnesty International.
Right.
They made this program where they would get cameras to people in indigenous areas that were being oppressed in hopes that they would get footage. And then they would stop the people that were abusing them.
It was video cameras and fax machines into areas where human rights infractions were happening. Yeah. And the idea was to get the information out of the countries. So that particular year, and it was the whole Hollywood thing, it was at the Universal Amphitheater.
Oh, wow.
And it was in connection with Dead Man Walking was the film.
Right, I remember that. Great soundtrack.
So the hosts were Sean Penn, Tim Robbins, Susan Sarandon.
What a show.
Yeah, but musically, it was great because we were there a week in advance for rehearsals.
Yeah.
David was hired as the musical director.
Okay.
For Peter.
Right. Because he'd been touring with him for a while.
Yeah, yeah. So I came along as David's assistant / engineer, and it was interesting because I became that was my first managerial gig. I became Peter's de facto manager because he didn't have anyone.
This was 90s, right?
96. So basically, if you needed to talk to Peter, you'd had to talk to me.
Wow.
Which I was 20. I was my late 20s, I think, at the time. And
that's a good way to learn the ropes.
Of course. I was, I'm a huge Peter Gabriel fan. So just being put in that position was eye-opening.
And that was a unique situation, a unique band. And from that film, I love that soundtrack because if I remember correctly, it's Eddie Vedder and Nusrat Fateh Ali Khan.
Correct.
a lot of that soundtrack. So
yeah, Tim Robbins' brother, I think, gets credited with the score, but he does bring in Eddie Vedder and Nusrat.
There's some beautiful pieces together with both of them.
So the band, let me try and remember. Carlos Vega on drums.
Wow, really?
Yep. David Rhodes came in. David Sancious, of course. I forget the guy's name, but he was the bass player from the Paul Simon Graceland album.
Oh, the South African guy.
Yes.
So the bass player in the band was Bakathai Kumalo. I'm not sure if I'm saying his name right, but he played with Paul Simon, right?
I believe so. Yeah. Yeah. So Carlos Vega, who was absolutely fabulous. So it was a different band, but Peter jumped right in and was...
Other than David Rhodes, it's all different guys.
Yeah.
Wow. And how long was your show and what was the set list like that you remember? Was it just a few songs or was it like a whole hour?
I think it was a few songs. You're asking me to remember from 1996. That's really...
I do remember they did Signal to Noise, which was
it was
Gabriel tune,
beginning
duet with Nusrat Fateh.
And that was way before the record came out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember Red Rain.
Yeah.
He did duets with
Michael Stipe?
Michael Stipe and Natalie Merchant together, I think.
What a mix.
And then Nusrat, of course.
Now that guy, a Pakistani singer who is now passed on, what a powerful voice. And in Peter's words, maybe the best singer that ever lived. What was it like as an engineer to handle that voice?
Well, it was not only the voice, but it was also his four guys were on the riser with him.
Oh, right,
so
right.
You had the percussionist, and I don't know what the drone instrument is that the guy's singing, but there's also a backup singer to him.
And they're all sitting right together.
They're on an 8x8 riser that got wheeled out, and they did their thing. It was brilliant. Yeah.
Just so everybody knows, the way we know each other is I used to live in Rochester, New York, and I would often travel to Woodstock, New York, which is 3 or 4 hours? I can't remember.
4 to 5, actually.
Yeah, and I would go up there, and I was doing some work with Jerry Murata, so we got to know each other. Yeah. I can't remember exactly how we met, but it was probably either you in Rochester or me in Woodstock.
I believe it was Rochester.
Yeah.
Either at, going back to the Tony Levin band days, so this is 2000.
Jesse
Gress, Larry Fast.
Pete Levin was in it for
Pete
a while.
came in later, but the original band was Tony, Jerry, Larry Fast, and Jesse Gress.
Yeah, what a band. That was incredible.
Yeah. Pieces of the Sun, I think, was the name of that record.
Incredible record. Now, did you work as an engineer in any of those recordings?
All of those recordings,
really?
Yes.
Wow, I only know you was doing that live, but that makes a lot of sense.
No, I did all of them.
And that is not normal music, so...
No. Well, that's my specialty, I think, is not normal music. I should put on my card.
All right, so before we get deep into what we were just talking about, I'd like to go back in time, back when you were very young, and I would like to know, what is your first creative memory?
Earliest memory? It would have to do with music. I picked up the guitar at a somewhat early age, and not knowing how to play it, I created my own chords. I didn't know what I was doing, but this sounded good. That sounded bad. That sounded good.
You're like a punk musician. You just figured it out.
Well, yeah, but I also did the. We had vinyl records where you would put the needle on and learn.
Yeah,
half a verse and then put the needle back and keep doing it. Yeah, but from the creative side, I would say inventing chords, and I haven't traveled much from that way of thinking. Still to this day, I've never been trained. It's all from ear. As far as what little playing I do on recordings and that sort of thing, and it's the same scenario where I just figure out what sounds good as opposed to, play a G minor 7th, because I barely know what that is.
Well, there's so many people that don't learn music in a conventional way. I was lucky enough in the 80s to meet Buddy Rich, arguably the best drummer that ever lived.
Right.
what I found out that night is he couldn't read music.
Right.
So he had a guy in the band that would sit in and play the song one time and he would memorize it and
Right.
then just obliterate.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So everybody learns in different ways.
Yeah. For me, if the chord didn't work, I would tune the guitar. So
Yeah.
it would work. You know?
And I remember as a drummer back in the day, before YouTube and all this, if I had to learn a drum part, I would slow the record player down because mine went down to 16.
Right.
So we all had to just figure out
Right. Exactly.
how to do this.
Exactly.
How about the environment you grew up in? Were your parents creative? And now that you're older, do you ever find yourself doing something creative and going, that's from my mom, that's from my dad?
I would say not so much creative. You know, they're working people. They had a large family, 5 kids, starting in the 60s, you know. So they were working all the time. They came from the era, you know, Depression era, you know, kind of mind meld. But what they did have was music.
Right.
From day one. Every day something was playing. My father was very much into big band and jazz.
Oh, cool.
Growing up in New Jersey, we had WNEW AM playing every day in the kitchen. So
who did he like in the big band era? Any specific artists?
Well, Frank, of course.
Yeah.
Any and all of it. I don't remember
Count
what
Basie and all
yeah,
that.
I think all of it.
Yeah.
But also jazz later on. When I was a teenager working with him, I believe the radio station we had was called WRVR. And it was a jazz station, but they started playing fusion jazz and electric jazz, which my father was not aware of.
Like Bitches Brew, like Miles Davis.
Yeah, and
Tony Williams.
Return to Forever,
yeah.
you know.
Mahavishnu.
And all of that. And that was the stuff I was like, wow, this is really cool. So we came together on that level. He, of course, was old school of, you know, the electric guitar was almost forbidden kind of thing, you know. Until he started hearing these guys play, and it's like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
No, that's something different, you know.
Well, I think that's a good mix for what you do now because a lot of those early big bands are great pop songs. And then you get into this fusion thing, which takes it way out. And that kind of encompasses everything that you do.
Yeah, it's also where I first learned about David Sancious. And, I knew about David Sancious and Tone before I knew about Bruce Springsteen. So on that level, that was the meeting with my father. My mother was into classical and the Beatles. And then I had older brothers and an older sister and a younger sister. And then, you know, each of them brought their own musical taste to the house. So again, you go up a floor, someone's, you know, my older sister's playing Doobie Brothers and Jackson Brown.
You were essentially in a record store.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Did anybody else play instruments?
No.
From your siblings?
No.
That's
what I'm saying, the creative. I was the only one who actually picked up an instrument.
But you're definitely in a musical environment by far.
Well, and you're getting the whole spectrum. Again, Jersey, so we had AM radio and the beginnings of FM radio. So the DJs played whatever they wanted. But then my older brother got the Allman Brothers, Fillmore East. That thing was nonstop, you know, just grilled into you.
Yeah.
Amazing recording, amazing playing. My other brother turned me on to Jimi Hendrix and The Who. And then my younger sister was listening to the Bay City Rollers. So I'm getting the pop stuff.
Wow.
And I, of course, I was a huge Beatles fan, Beach Boys fan, anything melodic. And then, of course, I discovered Genesis, Peter Gabriel, King Crimson. But also, we had a WNYC out of New York had a show, I think it's still playing, called New Sounds on Sunday nights at midnight.
Yeah.
And they played an Eno ambient record.
Ooh.
You know, it was either Apollo or On Land or something.
Yeah,
and it just blew me away. I was like, this is amazing.
Yeah,
it's just this drone.
You and I have always connected.
And I got heavily into Brian Eno. And so
you and I have talked endlessly about the Eno Burn album. My Life in the Bush of Ghosts. What a masterpiece.
Another, as you know, I've worked with Todd Rundgren for years, but Prairie Prince
Yeah.
was the drummer on that record.
Yeah.
And he gifted me all these rough mixes and demo
Yeah, you
tapes.
were playing those for me one time.
Oh, unbelievable. Bunch of unreleased stuff and just great.
And it's so ahead of its time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Do you think that creativity could be implemented in curing people, or at least helping people with mental health struggles like depression and anxiety? Any specific insight for you or all the people you work with? How have you seen creativity help or maybe even hinder artists?
Help or hinder.
Like a lot of people think that creativity and, let's say in your case, making music is an escape. But also songwriting can be cathartic.
Absolutely. Yeah, it just gets you out of your everyday routine, if you can switch your brain off and just go into that mode of whatever comes into your head, whether it's good or not. It's another thing I learned with working with these guys. The first band I worked with that was heavily into improvisational was Bruford, Levin, Upper Extremities.
Oh, man. So you did that. Love that album.
That was Bill Bruford, Tony Levin, David Torn, and Chris Bodie.
And that was the live version of what originally was Cloud About Mercury. Pretty much same band, but
Mark Isham. Chris Bodie switched out. Yeah, but we opened those tours. This was 1998, 99, 2000. We toured with that. And first of all, the opening track was an improv.
Yeah.
Bill would come out for 30 seconds and just do whatever. 30 seconds later, Tony would come out, do whatever. Yeah. Torn would come out, blah, 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 blah. And then they'd kick into the first track. But the beauty of it was they didn't discuss anything.
Really?
It wasn't like what key, whatever. It was just, that creative mind of just start playing.
Yeah, and listening.
And see what happens, and it's different every night. And also during those tours, we also did another improv later in the set. Same concept of don't discuss it.
Just see where it goes.
Yeah, see where it goes. Can be an absolute flop, but can also be absolutely glorious, if it catches, So I got heavily addicted to that sort of vibe because, if you're touring for 5 weeks, playing the same set every night, it gets boring, even from the mixer's point of view. It's like, throw a curveball at me, something completely out of whack. And it's like, oh, okay, I got to work now,
You're like a jazz sound engineer.
I would take it one step farther because, David Torn alone is going to throw sonic information at you that you are, it might scare a lot of people.
It often doesn't even sound like a guitar.
No.
And I think that's why people like David Bowie brought him in for the end. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And God help anybody that tries to recreate his
work.
How did you learn to do live sound?
Just by doing it.
Do you remember your first live sound gig?
Well, absolutely, I do. Actually, I was, believe it or not, how old was I? I was probably around 13.
Wow.
And growing up in Ridgewood, New Jersey, we had, I forget what it was called. Basically the town park had a band shell.
Yeah.
During the summer, they would do concerts or show movies or something like that. And my mother worked for the Ridgewood school system, and she knew I was into this sort of thing. And Bucky Pizzarelli was coming to play. It was just Bucky solo, and they needed a sound guy.
Yeah.
So my mother asked if I wanted to do this. I was like, I had, of course, with my own bands at the time, I knew the basic scenario of a mixing board.
Yeah.
What a mic pre was and how to move the fader and whatnot. But
what was the gear?
Oh, jeez. Now you're asking me to go back to the 70s. Yeah. It was probably a Shure Vocal Master. I mean, it was some beat up piece of crap,
So when you're traveling the world, when you're a tour manager, what would you say right now is the most difficult place to tour and why?
Difficult.
And then maybe you share with us some obstacles that you run into. Like, is Europe easier than America right now, or?
Well, right now the whole world is kind of in flames.
Good point.
Difficult. It's all difficult to a certain extent. You have to get a certain amount of people and equipment from point A to point B.
Mm-hmm.
Either way, it's, you're dealing with flights or transportation.
Are you going to bring most of your gear over to, let's say, Europe, or are you going to rent stuff there so you don't have to bring it all?
Well, here's the difference. If we're going back years ago, we would have to, if we're traveling to Europe, yes, we would end up renting backline gear.
Yeah.
Drum kits, amplifiers, but also you would request a front of house system and a monitor system.
Yeah.
So in that circumstance, yes, you would just rent it in, whether it travels with the band or each venue rents the gear or not. Depending on what that is, that all makes your setup and sound check longer than it needs to be.
Yeah.
All right, because your monitor system is different. Quite possibly your amplifiers are different from day one to day two.
I think it was Markus that told me the power is different over there too, and that can
it's
challenging, right?
220 over there. But what's happening today is this thing called amp modeling, and I travel with a rack-mounted mixing console that handles all the monitors.
Yeah.
And I mix the front of house from an iPad.
That's what I was going to ask.
So this sits on the stage. It's the same exact thing every night. They have amp modeling, so there's no amplifiers on stage.
Yeah.
So the beauty of that is where we left off the night before, the last song, is exactly where we're starting the next day in a different country.
Yeah.
So the beauty of that is we take the time to set up, but technically our sound checks can be 10 minutes long. Because
I've got to ask you too, because I'm in a band now that we use in-ear monitors, and we each have an iPad, and we can control what we hear. So that's easier for the musician. But is that more difficult for you or easier?
Easier.
Yeah.
First and foremost, they can't blame me for their bad monitor mix. So
I need more guitar. Well, turn it up.
Turn it up. There you got it. We're not using iPads, so I bring mixers. 16-channel mixers with me.
So I'm looking at Robert just handed me a Behringer PowerPlay 6, right?
Yeah, P16.
Nice.
16-channel mixer.
So this is what each guy in the band has?
Yeah, so it's mounted on a microphone stand. It's right at their fingertips.
Interesting.
And so, again, we don't have to spend 10, 15 minutes per man,
saving time,
getting a monitor mix going. So,
saving time and saving ears.
Yeah.
So you said that you would often go over there and rent equipment like drums and monitor systems and stuff. But what about a guy like Pat Mastelotto, who's like a mad professor with things they don't make anymore, like a Roland Hansonic?
Right.
He's got to bring at least some of that weird stuff. Right?
He brings all his electronics.
Yeah.
He brings his electronics. I bring the front of house and monitor rig, microphones, DIs. So it's exactly the same.
But you can easily grab him like a basic DW kit and he'll add all that.
Absolutely.
But he also has like weird metallic cymbal things that look like they're made in outer space. So he's probably going to bring those too.
Some of them. Again, we advance these tours. There's a whole backline list that is requested. And there's a back and forth of, can you provide this? Tell us what you can't provide. That
He's got to have the most difficult list.
It's it's pretty in depth. I mean, the drum kit is fairly basic, but the cymbals are not the norm.
And don't get me wrong, the guy is brilliant. When I watch him, I can't believe how he's like grabbing things that fall over, programming the next sounds. Running a sequence with his left hand while he's playing a solid beat and improvising.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, he's like, for 15 years, I've been wondering how he remembers what sound is on what pad, because there's 12 pads on a instrument, and it's, he knows exactly which one to hit.
Yeah. He is absolutely incredible. Are there any sound engineers, producers that you look up to that have either been mentors or that you go to a show and you're blown away by how they work the room? Anybody you admire?
Well, certainly on a record point of view, Brian Eno, Daniel Lanois
Yep.
are usually at the forefront, creatively speaking. Always something new, I think, from Brian. In the live realm, a couple guys, mentors for me. David Robb
Mm-hmm.
was an old school Bearsville guy.
Yeah.
And he just gave me a lot of information, a lot of tips, and, just would love to watch him work. Also, David Oakes from Pat Metheny's band.
Oh, yeah.
He was another guy that kind of, had no problem sharing his wisdom with me,
Yeah.
And again, I would just go stand next to him and just watch what he's doing. But actually, one of the guys, Dr. No from Bad Brains,
Yeah.
taught me how to mix reggae. 30 years ago.
What's one rule that works?
Kick and bass.
Yeah.
He's like, it's all about the kick and bass with reggae.
You got some tap delay there. You're trying to make sure it doesn't get out of
Well,
control.
it's really the low end is
The dub.
You're right. What drives the whole thing. And once he shared that with me, it was like, yeah, man. Any reggae band kicked.
Yeah. I've seen, and they're an interesting band because they're half reggae and half hardcore, so that can be challenging.
Yeah.
I remember I was living in Philly for a couple of years, and I went to see you doing sound for Tony. It's probably the Tony Levin band, and I think the venue was the Tin Angel, maybe. I was really impressed how you made it sound good there, because when I got there early, I was like, this is like a giant bathroom. So what I want to know is, what is maybe the most difficult space that you had to make sound good, and you walked in the door and you're like, oh shit.
Okay, let me start this by saying I kind of feel bad for younger engineers because the sound systems are really so much better than they used to be.
Really?
Absolutely. And most venues have, either a Behringer X32 or a Midas M32 digital consoles for starters. And then, at the basic, they'll have powered QSC speakers or something like that. Whereas in the old days, every venue was different. Every venue, you'd be mixing on a Mackie console into JBL speakers, and everything was different back then. So what worked to my advantage is that I've mixed in the shittiest venues around the world.
Yeah.
So
you've had everything go wrong.
And that's how you learn, Yeah. And your job is to make it sound good no matter what is thrown at you. Whereas, as I'm saying, I feel sorry because they're not getting that experience of actually having a piece of fucking garbage.
Yeah.
To actually try and make
the second level we can't forget is, okay, back then you had a difficult situation, but also maybe because of that, the artist is yelling at you like, what the hell, Robert? I can't hear myself. Or you've got to have a thick skin to deal with personalities that are not getting the sound they want. And I'm sure that was...
Well, I have a thick enough skin to not let them yell at me to begin with. So if you're going to yell at me, I'm going to yell back.
Well, I only bring that up, and I'm not pertaining to you, but I've seen a lot of artists that I like at venues yelling at the sound guy. So it's almost, to me, as tough as being a comedian. You really got to have a thick skin.
You have to have a thick skin, but you also have to say, I'm doing what I can to actually make this, work.
Yeah.
So you could stand there and yell at me and get nothing done, or
we can work together.
or we can make
Strange
it try to
concept,
happen. One of the worst. I've actually got hundreds, but one in particular. This was probably 1994, Cleveland, Ohio. I was touring with Rory Block, and it was some sort of diner type scenario, or it had been a diner converted into some sort of nightclub. But the mixing console was in the kitchen next to the guy flipping burgers. So, and what you had to do, there was a little square in the wall that you had to stick your head out and look down the room to see where the band was.
Yeah.
But first of all, half the console's covered in hamburger grease, and you're actually getting singed by the burger grease as you're trying to mix. That was
wow.
That was one for the books. Yeah.
Wow. And I remember the first time I went to the Baked Potato, and the mixing board is right there when you walk in the door.
Right.
So that was a little odd, but this sounds a lot more extreme.
Yeah. Well, that again, with the beauty of having my rack, I'm mixed with an iPad, so I can go now, sit in the middle of the room in between the speakers and actually hear what's going on instead of being stuck in the closet.
Do you have backup stuff? Like you're saying right now, it's a lot better when you go into venues, but do you have extra stuff in case they don't? Do you go into a place where maybe, are you using your own microphones and your own gear?
Yes.
Like where do you divide what the club has and what you use?
I carry everything I need to do the show except mic stands and mic cables.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I want from the venue.
Right.
That way, again, a particular instrument is going into this particular DI, into this particular channel. So it's exactly the same every single night.
Yeah.
So, yes.
There's consistency.
I carry everything I need to do that show.
So, like on a tour you're doing right now, you're doing the UK tour with Eddie Jobson. What do you have? Tell us really basically, what are you bringing to each club? What's your basic gear setup?
Okay, I have an X32 rack with an S16. That's a Snake 16. So that's giving me a total of 32 channels. I'm carrying 5 P16 mixers. That's one mixer for each guy and one backup. Then I carry all microphones for the drum kit. It's Marco Minnemann on drums, and he is using 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. He's using 14 microphones. Vocal microphone for Eddie and Mark Benio. Then, let's see, 3 channels of DIs for Mark Benio. He's using Fractal for his bass, but he's also got Taurus bass pedals. And then Eddie has his whole keyboard rig. So, and that's direct. So 4 channels from Eddie.
And obviously you guys have extra strings, drum heads, all that.
Well, yeah, drum heads are provided. Again, that's all advanced. Drum kit needs to be new heads every night.
Interesting. So for this tour, some of the stuff is already there.
All the stuff. Well, other than my gear, Eddie's gear, other than our personal gear, everything else is provided. Yeah. We're about to do Cruise to the Edge, so Marco's drum kit is being provided by the Cruise. Yeah. Yeah, we're not carrying that.
Me being a drummer, you probably would want a couple of extra heads. You never know.
Well, again, it's stated every night that all the heads need to be changed. So they better have extras.
All I'm saying is I recently saw Danny Carey has like a jazz band where he plays at the Baked Potato, and he's such a big guy. He broke the toms. Yeah. So I think no matter how good you are, things can go
Broke the toms on a jazz gig. All right.
Who do you always have the most fun touring with?
Well, I have to say Tony and the guys. Because we're friends, first of all.
And for people that don't know, that would be Stickmen, right?
Stickmen, or anything.
Levin Brothers.
Anything I do with Tony's always fun. Yeah, I mean, we have a relationship other than just the music. Yeah. You know, when we're home, we try to meet for breakfast, you know, at least once a week if we can, and just see what's up. You know?
Guys all have a good sense of humor. I saw a couple of weeks ago, he posted a photo of you, and you go, dude, that's like 10 years ago.
Well, that was actually 30 years ago. No, we actually have a pretty brutal sense of humor.
Yeah.
You know, actually, a lot we can't share with the public.
You got to survive. Dave Natal, front of house engineer, once said this: "People don't come to hear me mix, they come to hear the act. I want to present artists as they are. Hopefully, I'm just tuning up what they're doing."
I can agree with that. Absolutely. I mean, I can only do what the band delivers to me. I might be a little different, whereas I tend to push the rhythm section a little hotter than most. I've been extremely lucky to for all these years to work with probably the best drummers on the planet.
Absolutely.
And because of that, I know that a drummer of that caliber is going to be driving this thing. So my way of thinking with mixing is like, well, put the guy who's driving the thing right down the center.
Yeah.
And, we're following him. So everyone else can come in and around him, because I know that drummer is just going to be, plowing through it.
That certainly helps that you work with incredible musicians.
Absolutely.
Dave Ratt, who's a front of house engineer for Rat Sound, he said mixing sound in the live realm is not rocket science. In fact, it's probably closer to voodoo.
I can also agree with that.
There's a little bit of magic in
Well, I'm the kind of engineer that can't remember model numbers, and when I'm hanging out with engineers and they're doing all the mathematics and all that stuff, I'm kind of like, well, what does it sound like?
It sounds good.
Right. So that's kind of like what I'm doing. I remember worked at Bearsville Studios in my early 20s, and a very famous mixer came in who did, punk / heavy metal records.
Yeah.
And the first thing he asked is to put gaffer tape on all the meters on the console, because he didn't want to look at them, because he knew that they're all going to be pinned into the red.
Yeah, yeah.
And he was just like, get them out of my sight. I don't want to know about it.
Wow.
Because he listened. He listened to what it,
Interesting.
He's not going to sit there and go, oh, well, this is the right number. This is what the meter is telling me to do. He's like,
work the room.
Yeah. So, so that was a lesson,
Christina Moon said, "It's easy to get overwhelmed if someone's unhappy with the sound on stage. You need to be able to take a breath, think about what's being asked of you, and how to achieve that."
The only thing I disagree with is the overwhelmed part. Don't become overwhelmed, because this is your job. You're actually there to resolve those issues.
And especially with so much experience like you've had of decades, that that you're going to figure it out no matter how weird it is.
Right. And that's what, if you get overwhelmed, then that's where people will start yelling. It's like, no, let's just figure this out and be done with it. So try not to get overwhelmed.
All right, so before we go, what can I help you promote? Right now, you are touring with UK, which was a big band I was into in the 70s and early 80s, right? And this is a slightly different incarnation, but still doing the same songs from those two albums, right? I remember the first one was Bill Bruford, the second one was Terry Bozzio. So who's in the band and where are you guys playing?
Well, the original was Eddie Jobson, Bill Bruford, Alan Holdsworth, and John Wetton, of course. The second record had Terry Bozzio instead of Bill. So the band today, as you all know, we lost John Wetton a couple years ago, and Eddie also hasn't. The last time we did this was 2015.
Yeah,
and he kind of retired.
Yeah,
but as he says, someone convinced him to come out again. So we have, along with Eddie, Marco Minnemann on drums. As you know, we got Mike Keneally on guitar from Frank Zappa band.
Wow.
And we have Mark Bonillo from the Keith Emerson band.
Amazing.
Playing bass and vocals.
And are they drawing almost everything from those two albums?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I mean, I know they all have, like, I love Eddie Jobson's album Theme of Secrets. I mean, they have all stuff they can draw from, but they're really sticking to UK.
It's UK Revisited is the name of this. So, yes, it's all UK.
And what do you have coming up after this? You said the cruise?
We just did 8 sold-out shows in Japan, and we are about to fly to Miami tomorrow to do Cruise to the Edge.
Wow. And who's involved with that? Any other cool bands?
Well, my boys from Stickmen are there. Adrian Ballou is there. Bill Bruford is there.
Wow.
Who knows what's going to happen there? And, of course, Steve Hackett, Marillion.
If someone wants to keep up on what you're doing or possibly hire you for a gig, what's the best way to get a hold of you? Is there a website, or should they use email or social media?
There is a website, and believe it or not, this website was first started by Malcolm Moore.
I remember.
RobertFrazza.com or AshokanTalent.com will get you to the same place.
Okay.
Basically, you can get me through the website. It's robertfrazza@gmail.com.
Okay.
Very simple stuff.
Well, it's good to catch up with you. We should do this more often, and why don't we do this every time you're in town?
Okay.
Together, and you tell me what you're working on.
Okay. There's also this thing called Zoom, I think.
We can do that too.
Right now, I'm actually going back to the booking side of things. Since the pandemic, I've been on the road from March through November.
Yeah.
Home for like a day, home for 3 days, that sort of thing. So last year it started to get a bit too much, so I'm trying to back off a little bit, which is why I have Elvin going out with Stickmen now.
So you're looking into doing this more remotely?
Well, I have a lot of projects I want to mix. I've been remastering David Sanchez's old catalog, as well as
I remember you did a solo piano album with him that was really beautiful.
I've done multiple records since then.
Well, I'm glad I'm looking at your website, because so you do the Three of a Perfect Pair King Crimson Camp, right?
Yes.
And that, for everybody that doesn't know, where is that?
That's in Big Indian, New York, and it happens every August.
And then what are you doing with Will Calhoun? I've been a fan since Living Color first started. And I know before that he played with Harry Belafonte. Amazing drummer.
Yep. Again, I worked with Living Color at Bearsville Studios many years ago. And I then worked with David Torn and Will Calhoun on a project called Love Bubble.
How did I not know about this?
You don't know about that?
No.
Absolutely amazing.
Just those two?
Yeah, and all improv. And it's the most amazing thing you've ever heard in your life.
I got to hear that.
And then working with David Sanchez, it just, ideas popped up. I was like, you should play with Will Calhoun. He's perfect for you. And so David invited Will up to play on some of his records. And then we just talked about doing some touring. So,
Wow.
I just put a few weeks together. We did last May, we did about 3 weeks in the Northeast. Kind of half and half, half composed material and then improv stuff. So again,
More not normal music. That's your thing.
well, it's so not normal that it's normal again.
All right. On that note, so good to talk to you.
Yeah,
Robert.
man. Thanks. Good to see you.
Talk soon. This sounds like a space practice on.
They're vacuuming out there.
Okay. All right. We'll keep going.
Hello, my name is Jefferson De Leon, and I am a scientist in the biotech sector and a comedy musician, and I am a proud sponsor of the Creativity is the Cure podcast, because creativity is central to who I am and what I do. Check out my creations on my website, jeffersondeleone.com. That is JEFFERSONDELEONE.com.